Alrighty.
You want to try and talk?
Seems
Okay, it's a little better. It's not perfect, but it's a little bit better.
gosh. Okay. Well, part 2. Let's just go from here. So we were talking about modes of historic oppression. And so I was wondering if you could dovetail this into the conversation surrounding cultural studies, right? Or ethnic studies, which is supposed to be either put into schools or taken out of school soon. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit on that.
Yes, so there's this Assembly Bill 331 is what it's called. I haven't actually caught up on whether or not it passed yet or didn't pass, but they introduced it as an effort to introduce an ethnic studies class as a high school graduation requirement in California. And I think a lot of, and I can speak to this from my personal experience as well, is a lot of U.S. history curriculum is kind of focused around the perspectives of white people and the narratives of people of color and those who are being negatively affected by all of the things that we're learning about. Their actual versions of the stories and their perspectives are sometimes often diminished. And then there are also things that we just skip entirely, which is also a problem. But yeah, so they leave out a lot of important details about like Native Americans and Mexican Americans and Japanese Americans and Chinese Americans and the ways that these groups were negatively impacted by the actions of all these white people that we're learning about. And I think this causes a lot of students to feel like underrepresented, and then at the same time, like their history and their ethnicity is being degraded or disregarded as less important. And woo! Oh, it did pass. Yes. Oh my gosh. I wish that would have been before I was about to graduate, but that's okay. But yeah, so they just kind of skip over a lot of things, and I didn't really realize this too much until I was taking US history, but specifically this summer doing research. Like things like that I just found out the other day about how Native Americans didn't have the right to vote in all 50 states until the 1960s. Like, that's a huge deal. And that is a huge, and like, I've never heard that ever in my entire educational career.
That created a foundation that can't necessarily go back and make up for. So those types of foundations, exactly. They're way now. A lot of the times we want to think those ideas in history are over, but we're still seeing the effects, which means the story is not over.
Yeah.
In our history text.
Exactly. And we're still
glad that's done, but is it done? It's not.
Yeah. Exactly. And there's still voter suppression and like, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
No. You're 18, right? You voting this year?
Okay. No, I'm so sad. I'm 17 and I turn 18 in May. So, of course, like...
people to vote. And for your parents to fill out the census, right? When we talk about...
yes.
identities are seen, we want to think about making sure that we're making our presence known. So if y'all are listening, do the census.
Yes.
Do the census. Real quick shout out, my friend Arlene Correa Valencia makes sweatshirts for those who are field workers, and it sends these great sweatshirts out that say Somos Visible, which is we are visible, if you fill out your census. So you get a free Levi's sweatshirt if you fill out your census, and check out her Instagram, Arlene Correa Valencia. Amazing artist, amazing activist.
I was looking into her website today that when I saw it on our little document. Seems really awesome. I'm gonna follow her.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for shedding light on that. I think that's a topic to think about when we talk about flipping the script and making sure that underrepresented stories are seen, having ethnic studies as a mandated classroom curriculum. Exactly. Like Kenya said, that's a big win.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to know a little bit from you. What was the process of creating your own podcast?
Yes.
Ethnographer, and then how would you describe your experience?
Yeah, so the process, first of all, I never would have started it, or I never would have, joined together with the girls that I am working with right now if it wasn't for About Face and for the Redwood City Library and our project that we did. So shout out to them. Shout out to all of our mentors. Henya's on here. So yeah, thank you to all of you guys for giving us the resources and stuff that we need, and the connections. I've been connected with just so many people like Hannah, or different mentors and stuff that I could always, I know I can go to with hard questions, or if I need, Hannah's offered to help me edit my college essays. That's an insane, amazing resource. But yeah, as far as the podcast, we have an Instagram, and it's called girlsinaction.sf, the one that I'm on right now. And basically we are planning to do podcast episodes once every few weeks or once a month, because we're all in school still, so it's pretty busy. But it's me and 3 other amazing girls. Maya and Nava were all task force with me. And we made a podcast that is about calling out, or just, it's social justice. It's oriented around social justice issues, and we are hoping to tie in current events with bigger systemic problems, and just talk about general social activism and different topics every time we record an episode. So we have one episode that already out, that's Intersectionality, just a general overview of what it is, where it came from, and some examples and stuff like that. Our second episode that's also already out is an interview with Hannah, where she talks about her art and her experience being an intersectional person. So if you want to check those out, we have a link in the bio of my Instagram, the one that I'm coming from right now. It's a link tree, and it has, what was that?
Girls in Action.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it's called. So after the live or whatever, if you want to check it out, you can follow us. But yeah, we've just felt super empowered by the program, and we were given so many resources, and we're really excited that we're having this opportunity to use our voices and speak out. And also, while we're doing that, we're practicing really essential skills like research and public speaking, and being able to have a conversation without scripting it, or just practicing stuff like that. And we're all young people, so that's also exciting, that we're bringing kind of a youth aspect into it, and we can relate to other people who are also young people. So yeah, and we want, when we say our name is Girls in Action, one of the things that we really want to focus on is giving young people ways that, attainable calls to action, and ways that they can help with whatever situation we're talking about on our podcast. We want to offer resources and book lists and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, so I encourage y'all to definitely check out their Instagram and their podcast, especially if y'all want to learn more about intersectionality. I feel like they do a really great job with creating graphics, and even the ongoing research is still very rigorous. And, even, again, it informs me in so many ways. So please check them out. They're such strong ethnographers and such strong researchers, and we're excited that they keep going. But Briana, I'd love to know from you, what are some of your calls to action, thinking through this conversation with the ways that COVID is a framework and intersectional lives have to exist in that? What would you say your call to action is?
Yeah, so ones that I feel like are attainable to everybody is definitely just daily allyship, educating yourself and being aware of the privileges that you do have. Another big one is, if you are a reader, if that's a way that you like to educate yourself, diversify your reading list and read books written by people of color and stuff like that. Do research, ask really thorough questions. If you're having conversations, think of good questions. Understand oppressive systems, figure out what's really happening, I guess. And I think you mentioned this earlier, Hannah, but just be cautious of news headlines. Be really critical of media. That's important, I think, is we have to understand just that there's so much flying at us all the time. We have to be really careful sifting through all of that and making sure that we're hearing the voices that do need to be heard. And then as you're learning new things, I think sharing those things with other people in whatever ways you can, and having conversations with family and friends, providing resources for other people, uplifting voices that have historically been silenced, So yeah, those are some things you can do for daily allyship. Some more things that are more, I guess, specific to COVID and COVID times. I know a lot of kids learning from home are struggling, and there are a bunch of organizations where you can sign up to be online tutors for kids, support movements, BLM, and any other like things that are coming up. I don't know if you want to shout out some other movements going on right now, Hannah.
Challenge is one that's centered around ways that COVID has really perpetuated people who are in domestic spaces and having to deal with that ongoing femicide, which is the harm of women, right? So that's one of them. When we're seeing all the black and white photos that we're allies to our sisters, that's one way.
Women supporting women, yeah, totally.
Got us, like we got us, like
yeah.
But yeah, well, can you say a little bit more about what allyship is? That is.
Yeah. So I mean, really just making sure that you're helping create a space that uplifts the voices of the people who need to be heard, and making sure that that you are actively supporting in the right ways the people who are being oppressed and discriminated against. And I think allyship, while, like, for me as a white person, I don't want to center my voice, and I want to like uplift those who truly understand what is going on in like ways that I am not able to understand. But yeah, I think that's like where I'm seeing my role as an ally. But I mean, I'm still working on it. I have so much left to learn and to unlearn. But yeah, that's a huge thing that's been circulating, is like learning and unlearning things, because so many of the things that we're taught aren't the way that we're supposed to be doing things. And so we really need to be open to change and open to learning from the people who understand the experiences more than we do.
No, being able to exactly, Brianna, being able to call ourselves out and say, like, you know, I wasn't saying this thing correctly. Now I need to like reshape my framework and my vocabulary to address this thing and to do this. But yeah, I really do think that conversation and research are the first steps to creating and being active in these ways. But yeah, just like Jennifer said, like, we're never done learning. This is a lifelong learning and unlearning process.
Exactly. Yeah.
Researchers were just finding different methods to do that, right? Different methodologies to get into some of this stuff, because it's not made very clear, right? A lot of the times we're not taught about these frameworks.
Yeah.
The classroom, like, how are we expected to have known this for that many generations?
Exactly.
So there's that we really can you let's see, which one do I want to do first? Can you state any like artists, creative, environmental activists, intersectional voices that you feel like are speaking to the moment that you want to shout out?
Yes, totally. And we're also going to make an infographic on the Girls in Action about like tagging these people if you want to follow them. But you shouted out your friend, I don't want to say her name wrong, Arlene Correa Valencia, is that right? And so totally check out her website. She has a super inspirational story and lots of resources and stuff. Another one that I want to shout out is Lexi Underwood. She's an actress, and she's a young actress and activist, and she's just stirring up the conversation, I guess, on her Instagram, and she's a good resource. When I mentioned earlier that I'm looking into intersectional climate activism, two people that I've been following and listening to their podcast, Michaela Loach and Leah Thomas, or Green Girl Leah is what she's known by, are two really amazing women who are fighting to make the environmentalist movement more intersectional and to include voices of people of color, because environmentalism as a movement has centered around privileged white people. And so they're trying to like bring more voices into that. So they're great. And they have Michaela Loach has a podcast called the Yikes Podcast. So they just talk about like current events and navigating the world as an intersectional person and an intersectional environmentalist. So their Instagram's super awesome. And then Stacey Monday, her Instagram is Art by Monday, and she's an amazing artist. And I love, like, she does, I think, mostly painting, but yeah, she has some beautiful work. I wish I had some. I need to get some of hers, but yeah, so those are a few people.
And I'm not trying, I'm a little biased, but art is a great way to speak outside because it's not rhetoric as a lot of the rhetoric we're seeing in mainstream media.
Yeah.
But yes, all the environmental justice advocates, as Hanya, like we're trying to help them in any ways that we can.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you're following that story. That's incredible. Yeah. But yeah, last question for you, and I think that y'all are going to put it on your the Instagram, but I would love to know, are there any books, or are there any other resources that you think that would help people get started on this journey if they were interested in learning more and figuring out a way that they can speak outside of the mainstream narrative,
Yes, totally. So we're going to have a book list. We're going to make an infographic because we have an upcoming episode very similar to what we talked about today. It's just how COVID is affecting marginalized people in different ways. And so we're going to have a list of Black-owned businesses that you can support. We're going to have lists of like companies that are using prison labor, and so companies that we can boycott, and then other companies that can like substitute for those that are like ethical. So we're going to have a list of those on the infographic, and then a book list also. We're going to have, and some of the books on there are, if you want to learn about like the prison pipeline, The New Jim Crow and Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander. That's one of the books that's on my list right now. I haven't picked that one up yet, but I'm excited to read that one. And then How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kennedy. I hope I said that right. Is another great resource. And then if you're looking to learn a little bit about environmental racism, there's A Terrible Thing to Waste, which is a newer book by Harriet A. Washington. And then we're going to have a list of a few poets on there too. Malika Booker, Linton Kwesi Johnson. I hope I said that one right too. But yeah, so if you want to get some more of those resources, they'll be on the Girls in Action page.
Much for that.
Yeah.
I think we're just about wrapped up here. That was the last question I had for you. But just last minute shout out to the ancestors for getting us to this point, and for bringing us together to be able to have this conversation. I'm so grateful to working with you and to have worked with Girls Task Force. And I'm excited to see the conversations that you're going to keep inspiring. So great job.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hannah, and for this Instagram Live, and also for all of your support with the summer, and then moving on from that into the podcast and everything. You've been such an amazing mentor and resource, and I'm just so happy that I got to work with you and that I'm going to continue to work with you. It's such an amazing experience.
I love still going to y'all's meetings. So thank you for just being so motivated and dedicated. You're an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.